You are listening to the Adapt Performance podcast, where we aim to make elite level strength and conditioning accessible to everybody. I'm your host, Jordan Webster, and let's get into the episode. Yes, guys, what is going on? Welcome back to another episode. So we are on Sunday. What is the date, actually? I'll get that up now. Sunday, the 5th of May. And I want to get on here and kind of give you some reflections and some general thoughts around this weekend. So this weekend, Ben Woolis, one of our athletes, was fighting on a show called Walker Night. It was his third Pro MMA fight. So he won it. He won it with a rear naked choke, which was beautifully set up with, some really fancy, well executed head kicks. So yeah, it was sick, absolutely buzzing. His next fight is in 5 weeks in Newcastle on PFL, which will be sick. So that's going to be his debut on there. But what I kind of want to get into today is some lessons from being backstage at a Pro MMA fight. And I want to go through some of the things I saw being done really, really well, and then some of the things that I think, could generally be improved. And I think just kind of shining a light on some of these will hopefully help some of you guys that are listening, whether you are involved in MMA, a combat sport, or a contact sport. Like, it just applies across the board. And this is going to be very much a performance-related discussion. And I mean that in a sense of it's not just going to be strictly strength and conditioning, okay? When I say performance, I'm almost meaning holistic. We are going to kind of dig into a little bit of everything. We're going to touch on some S&C. We're going to touch on some nutrition, some psychology, some sport, and just some general kind of themes and philosophies around performance and how to really get the most out of somebody. So yeah, this is going to be cool. So this was brought about actually because I got asked a question when Ben was warming up. He was kind of mooching about. He's doing some pictures and stuff like that. So I was just kind of sat near where he was getting warm. And a guy came up to me, and he was going to be fighting. I think he was going to be fighting like two fights time, something. And he asked me about primers. So he'd seen a video that I had put up a while ago, explaining about, pre-fight primers and what they're really good for and, all that type of. If you haven't seen the video, I'll put it in the show notes below just so you can go and watch it. It was a quick, 20-seconder. And he said, oh, what can I do? Like, what would be a good primer for me, right now? And, he's literally going to be fighting, could be in 2 minutes. It could be in, 30 minutes, depending on how long the fights last. And, it's tricky because I've been in that situation. I know what it's like when you're nervous and you're just looking for solutions. You just want somebody to help you out. You want to get those extra little bits of edge, but you're not going to get them 10 minutes before, particularly when it's the first time you've ever played around that technique. So what I want to kind of base this chat around then is there are no silver bullets to performance. There is just 1,000 tiny pellets, okay? And if you haven't heard of like the idea of a silver bullet before, it's like it's a quick and easy solution to something. It is a singular, solution to a problem that you have. And I believe it comes from like werewolves, so you can't kill a werewolf with just a normal bullet. It needs to be silver. It's kind of that is the thing. And that is the one solution that's going to kill a werewolf. And we don't have that for performance. We don't have a primer. It's not a whoop band. It's not, zone 2 cardio. It's not any of the things that are popular to talk about at the moment, even though you can be convinced into thinking that is the solution to the problem that you currently have. And that's media sensationalizing things, and that's marketing and everything like that. Okay. But it gets me down to this thing of like, yeah, there is no one solution. We need to be thinking a little bit deeper than that. And I want to kind of give you some steps to do that. But the first one being like, this was Ben's 41st fight. Okay. It's 41 times going through a preparation, refining the process and making sure that we learn after every single one. And we're constantly iterating to things. And if you think about your own like sporting performance now, you've probably done a decent amount of events, or maybe you haven't, but I bet you've done a decent amount of training sessions. So they can be one and the same. Like, you can use every training session as an opportunity to really kind of practice things and not just throw a primer in at the last minute. So it brings me back to this saying of, I don't even know who said this, but I'll just say I made it up. I definitely didn't. But, we are what we repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence is not a singular act, but it is a habit. Okay. And it's something, if you're really trying to be the best at something, it's not just a one-time thing. You're not just going to be motivated one day, wake up and, mow the best grass in the world. I say that because I can hear, somebody mowing grass outside my window. But it's one of those things where you really do need to invest a little bit more into you. You really need to think about things on a long-term time horizon. So essentially, what I want you to get from this is practice. Okay, practice and planning is what you need to be doing. And I'm going to highlight a few things that I saw that was done really well yesterday from everybody, and then some things that I think actually could just generally be improved. And actually, just going back to my advice to the chap that came over, I didn't give him anything. I said to him, mate, you're ready. Like, I've seen you on the pads, mate. You're going to fucking crush it. Like, it was a little bit of a hype man talk more than anything. I'm like, you don't need a primer at this point, bro. Like, you're good. And I genuinely believe that he didn't need a primer at that point because he looks sick on the pads, but obviously you don't know how a fight's going to go. But I do feel like me just giving him a random thing that we don't know how that stimulus is going to react to him. We don't know if he's good at jumping, bad at jumping. We don't know if he's done much before. Does he have the skill level? What's his fatigue status? So I didn't give him anything. I gave him a hype man. Let him know if he needs any questions. He can give me a message on Instagram. We can talk through those things. So essentially, right, here it is. Here are some of the things you want to be practicing. I'll give you some stories behind it. So strength and conditioning, okay, we'll speak about that. Before the fight and before every fight that we've done together, we're always making sure that we're on the same page in terms of what we want to get out of things, okay? So this happens months in advance. It's like, okay, well, these are the physical qualities that we want to train. Okay, cool. We'll put a program in place to do that. And we'll chat about it 12 weeks out, 8 weeks out, whatever that point is. So we're having these discussions and really figuring out, okay, this is what we're going to go after. Okay, perfect. And then I put the program in place and we make little changes to it based on the schedule, injuries, whatever happens. Okay, we speak about things like primers. Okay, is a primer something you want to do? Okay, cool. Well, maybe the best thing for us to do at this point is actually try and integrate that into your weekly schedule in some way, shape, or form. So you have an awareness. Okay, I do a primer the day before sparring. How does that make me feel? And it's not a full force primer. Like, there's not going to be the same variables that we have on a fight week, because generally speaking, we're trying to get rid of fatigue when it comes into fight week. We're really trying to freshen up a little bit. So it's not truly, it's not super valid when we do it as part of a normal training week. However, we can still get some of the benefits of being super explosive, super twitchy, and get the central nervous system, riled up so that you go into the sparring session feeling a bit better. So we speak about that ahead of time. Okay, we speak about, okay, we're going to use this strategy so that we can actually plan it and integrate that into the process. Okay, it's not just a last minute willy-nilly decision. It is practiced, it's thought out. Ahead of time, we think about, okay, well, what do you want your warm-up to be? Okay, what's that going to be? Okay, like, do you want to do a little stretch, a little move around, a little shadow box in the corner? You come over to me. I'll do some mobility, do a little, like pre-fight warm-up with you, do a few jumps, that type of thing. And then you're going to be, put your gloves on, hit some pads, get your hands on a body, work some takedown stuff, work some, defense, that's how it worked. But it was all planned. So we know, we don't know it to the minute because we can't be that specific sometimes at a fight show. However, we know what the order of things is going to be, and people are on hand to make sure that happens. So, if you are a young fighter currently kind of thinking about, okay, how can I maximize, my preparation? This is the type of stuff. But it's hard work. It's hard work to think about what you want to do. It takes effort. It takes energy. But that's one thing I want you to think about is the strength and conditioning stuff. It needs to be planned. Okay, it shouldn't be last minute. It shouldn't be willy nilly. The next thing is nutrition is definitely something you need to factor in, particularly if you're going to be cutting weight. So making sure that you are rehydrating properly. If you are using supplements, it's something that you've practiced. And your rehydration strategy and your kind of fueling is all planned. Whether that's you do a cut not as part of a fight camp, just so you can kind of practice those things, or whether you've just got enough time as part of you collecting amateur fights before you step up the ranks. Who knows? But I think being quite detail orientated makes sense. And this goes back to Jack, our nutritionist, as part of ADAPTS. One of the slides he always puts on our live workshops that we have every month is practice is key. And it's so true. Like, yes, guys, what is going on? Quick break in today's episode for me to remind you about ADAPT's online strength and conditioning coaching. Our mission really is to make elite level strength and conditioning accessible to everybody. And our service does exactly that. So you get access to everything: an elite level coach, physiotherapist, psychologist, nutritionist, a community to keep you engaged. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is give you everything you would ever need in order for you to achieve your goals. So if that is something that you are curious about, get in contact and we'll just have a no pressure chat where I explain everything, find out a little bit more about you, and we can decide whether you are a good fit for our program. Okay, without further ado, let's get back into the episode. Cheers. You don't just want to go into a competition that you are nervous about. You don't know what your stomach's going to be saying. You're going to try a new supplement. You're going to take pre-workout. You're going to, have different types of food that you don't usually, like imagine, petrol station sushi or something like that. I say that as a joke, but it happens, because it's quick, it's easy, it's there, it's rice, cool, it's carbs, but we don't know how you're going to react to it. So nutrition, something you need to factor in. I'm trying to get an idea of, okay, what was yesterday? So we had our last big meal about 4 p.m. He fought about 9. Okay, so last big meal about 4 p.m. I think avocado on toast, had some eggs, that type of thing. Used to it, knows what he's, how he's going to feel with it. Is where we went last time we were fighting on the same show. So we knew he was fine. So that's perfect. So we went with the same thing. That was about 4 o'clock. We then went back to the hotel room. We just chilled out for a little bit. He was kind of snacking on some like jelly babies type things, just little bits of energy, just to keep him energized more than anything. But it's not super voluminous, is something that he knows is going to be able to digest well. He's not going to smash a full bag, so he's not going to feel like he's super sick or anything like that. And then he's just kind of picking at those until the fight, realistically. When we walk into the event, I got him an espresso, gave it to him. He's probably about an hour out from actually fighting. He takes a few sips at it. He didn't neck the full thing. That's one of the things you'll need to experiment with. If you're a latte guy, you probably don't want to smash a latte an hour before you fight. So he's thinking about, okay, what kind of caffeine can you get in to make you a little bit more alert, get the most out of the physical qualities? Because we know that caffeine, is super beneficial for strength, power, endurance, all that. So gave him an espresso, and then it's water, and it's just water until the event because it's not far away. And you can practice these things as well, because it's exactly the same thing as every time you go to a training session. It's like, okay, how did I feel when I had a flapjack an hour before I trained? Did I feel good? Did I feel full? Did it keep me full for the full duration? Did I feel like I had good energy? Okay, perfect. Okay, how did I feel when I had a KFC? Okay, shite. Okay, obviously it makes sense. So just feeding that in every time you do something, just make a little bit of a mental note on it. Nutrition, just practice it, think about it. Next one was the psychology side of things. Okay, 41 fights in, he has a good awareness on, when he's feeling his best self and when he, potentially gets a little bit too amped up or he's a little bit flat, and what we need to do to kind of get him in that space. It's having those words of affirmation. And this is something we've spoke about a few times with him, like calm, composed, okay, just fight smart. Those things, that's like a triggering word for him. And this is something that Sarah, our psychologist, spoke about as well as part of ADAPT, is, you can have little triggering words, you can have little mantras, you can have little things that just recenter you back to the type of athlete that you want to be, so calm and composed, okay? We know he's fast, we know he can be aggressive, we know he can just chop down anybody. However, when he's at his best is when he's calm, is when he's thinking, is when he's, he's analytical, he's in the moment, he's present. So same thing here. Like, think about when you are your best athlete, when you had your best spar, when you had your best, rugby match, whatever that thing is, what was your mindset? Okay, how can we recreate that? What can we do to get you back to your best version of yourself? And it'll take some work, and it changes all the time because human beings are definitely not simple. But it's something that you really do need to try and consider. And then the final one, actually just going back to the psychology and the nutrition, because I kind of forgot about, what other people are doing here. Like, I saw people wanting to experiment with primers. Cool, not great. I wouldn't do it. I saw two polarized examples of warm-up strategies. I saw one guy literally just walk in to the changing room, put on his gloves, did about a minute of shadow boxing, and then he was out. And I'm like, fuck, okay. Maybe that's what works for him from a psychological standpoint. But from an actual like physiology standpoint of getting some blood pumping through the body, really to get the most out of like raising the core temperature, get the most out of, everything physiologically, all the benefits of warming up and getting some mobility through the joints. He didn't have that. I also saw somebody smacking pads for what seemed like an hour before his fight and killing it as well, like absolutely smashing the pads. And I'm talking like rounds, like not just like a few combos, take a step back, chill, recomposed. It was just going and going and going. And that's probably the worst, of the two. Well, maybe not the worst, actually. I take that back. But they're both not great. So you need to find that middle ground somewhere where you're getting warm, but without fatiguing yourself ahead of the fight. Nutrition wise, to be fair, I didn't actually see too much. But I've definitely seen it at fight shows before. People are smashing Kit Kats and people, and because they've weighed in, and they think that the food is no longer a thing now, and I can remember doing this when I was younger. I can remember, we must have been 16 or something. Like, I'm genuinely saying we went to an all-you-can-eat Chinese buffet and I'm just smashing like chicken balls, those sweet and sour things. And I can remember walking out to my fight. It was in Sheffield, actually. It was kickboxing. And I felt like a gluttonous pig. I felt so bloated. Like, I was lean at the time. So I've never really like been mega lean, but I looked bloated. I looked like my stomach was just protruding. It was horrible. And I felt shy. And guess what? It didn't go well, and it's one of those. It makes sense just to practice things ahead of time. Psychology, I saw some, I don't know if it was good or bad examples. We don't really know. We don't know the silver bullet for that particular person. However, I saw people get mega hyped, and looked almost uncontrolled. But if that makes them feel confident because they're kind of rowdy, sick, And then I saw the opposite. I saw people that looked really withdrawn, but it's one of those. You're going out to fight another human being. It's not always going to feel super smooth. And then the final one that I want to kind of zoom in on is the actual sport mastery piece. Okay, you're going out there to perform at your sport, and there are a few different examples that I saw yesterday. So Ben, for example, I just kind of told you what it'd be is hit shadow box for a little bit, just kind of get moving, get flowy, add warming up with some mobility stuff, do a little bit of jumping, explosive work. He would then glove up, smack some pads, do a little bit of live stuff with his coach Ollie, and then you're good to go. So you're ticking all the boxes there. He's got his hands dirty with the task that he's about to do, because it's not just about physically being ready. You want to make sure, like, mentally, you've got the sequences going down in your head. You've got a good awareness of distance. You've got a good awareness of when you need to step in. What you need to do to really kind of finish the fight well. And again, I saw people doing both. I saw people doing none of that because they just put the gloves on and went out. And then I saw people that looked like they were sparring, like fully going for it. And I can understand that one as well, because you want to know, okay, you want to take a little shot to the head every once in a while. You want somebody to kind of stick in a little bit of a shot just so you can know, okay, I'm not made of glass here. My jaw is not just going to spin off. So there's just some thoughts there. And just to revisit back to, the start, okay, there is no silver bullets to this. It is 1,000 tiny pellets, okay? It is 1,000 small actions added up over the fight camp and the years previous to that are going to benefit you in this moment. So, like, there are going to be so many decisions within your preparation that are going to benefit you on fight night. And you might not think that they matter at this point, but I do think that they do. And just kind of wrapping up with that other quote, we are what we repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence is not a singular act, but is a habit. Think about the habits that you have and think about the things that you do repeatedly. This goes back to your nutrition. It goes back to the way that you train or don't train. It goes back to, the way that you talk to yourself and you talk to your teammates. Like, what is your self-talk like? And generally speaking, how much of a student of your sport that you are, how much of a true athlete where you're kind of buying into what it takes to be the best at, at your sport. So, yeah, just some thoughts there. And it was sick. Like, it was so cool. I love fight weekends. It's just a great opportunity to be around people that are just hungry to get better. And I fucking love that. Like, just being around people that are so buzzing to just be present in the moment and just like chasing down a dream. Sick. And this wasn't just a pro MMA show. There were amateur fights on there. There were some K1 fights on there. Yeah, just unreal. Sweet. So that is all I've got for you today, guys. If you enjoyed the episode, do let me know. Drop us a message, give us a little bit of feedback. You know, if there's anything I can kind of help with, do also let me know with that. But yeah, hope you are doing well, guys, and have a good rest of the Sunday. Okay, that is the end of today's episode, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you did, please do let us know and then share it with somebody who may find this episode interesting. Okay, see you next time. Cheers.